What's going on, everybody? Cleepus Tech here, coming back at you with another video. In this video, we're going to be doing a quick comparison between the T-Mobile Revvl 6 5G and the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G. Now, before we go any further, as always, I do want to remind you to hit that subscribe button. And in case you want to learn more about either phone individually, I will be linking to several other videos about each of them in the description, along with some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But with that being said, let's get into it. So with the T-Mobile Revvl 6, we're getting a 6.52-inch IPS LCD display with a 720p resolution, a PPI of 269, and a 20:9 aspect ratio. With the A53 5G, we're getting a 6.5-inch 120Hz Super AMOLED display with a 1080p resolution, a PPI of 405, and an aspect ratio of 20:9 as well. So essentially, the size and dimensions here are going to be pretty much the same, but when it comes to image quality, the A53 5G has a huge advantage. With the Super AMOLED display, not only are we getting much better brightness and viewing angles, making the Samsung quite a bit easier to see in brighter areas, but with the A53 5G, we're also getting a 1080p resolution versus only 720p with the Revvl 6. So in general, for more basic activities like web browsing, reading, stuff like that, where the image quality doesn't really matter all that much, the T-Mobile Revvl 6 is going to be perfectly fine. But if you're doing stuff like watching videos, looking at photos, playing games, things like that, where you really do want a nice looking image, you are going to get a much better experience with the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G. Now for storage, with the T-Mobile Revvl 6, we're getting 64GB of internal storage with microSD card expansion, and with the A53 5G, we're getting 128GB with microSD card expansion as well. So on one hand, 64GB really isn't bad, I mean, for the average user, as long as you're mindful of what you're putting on your phone, and you make sure to use a microSD card whenever you can, it will be at least acceptable, and you should at least get by. But if you're more of a power user, if you're constantly downloading stuff like apps, games, things like that, then of course, the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G, having double the storage at 128GB, will be a much better choice for you. For security features, both phones do have Face Unlock, and they both have fingerprint scanners. With the T-Mobile Revvl 6, it's right here in the power key, and with the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G, it's right here in the display. But starting with the Revvl 6, let's give them a try. There we go, one more time. And there we go. And now for the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G. There we go, one more time. And there we go. So as you can see there, both fingerprint scanners were real fast and responsive. And again, remember, both phones do have Face Unlock too, so if you want to use that instead, you always can. Now taking a look at the camera setups here, with the T-Mobile Revvl 6, we got a water drop notch for the front-facing camera. This camera is 5 megapixels. Then on the back, we got a triple camera setup with a 13 megapixel main camera, a 2 megapixel macro camera, and a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera. For video, this phone has a max recording quality of 2K in the rear camera and 1080p in the front. With the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G, we got a hole punch design for the front-facing camera. This camera is 32 megapixels. Then on the back, we got a quad camera setup with a 64 megapixel main camera, a 12 megapixel ultra-wide camera, a 5 megapixel macro camera, and a 5 megapixel depth sensing camera. And then for video, the A53 5G has a max recording quality of 4K in both the rear and front cameras, so definitely a nice thing to see here. So with these camera setups, on one hand, with the T-Mobile Revvl 6 5G, for more casual use if you really just need a couple nice photos every now and then, but you're not really going to be using the camera all the time, and you don't need the absolute best photos and videos you can possibly get. In that kind of situation, the Revvl 6 5G is definitely going to at least get the job done. And again, for more occasional use, you will most likely be satisfied. That being said though, with the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G, this camera is honestly on a whole nother level, which you can probably tell by the features. With an ultra-wide camera, that's definitely a nice feature to have. Being able to record 4K videos is also pretty cool. And in general, the photo quality you're going to get with the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G is honestly so much better that if you're maybe more of a content creator, or if you're just using your camera a lot, in that kind of situation, I do think it would definitely be worth it to get the A53 5G. But again, if you're a more casual camera user, just keep in mind, the T-Mobile Revvl 6 5G, while definitely not being quite as good, is still going to get the job done. Now as far as RAM and processor go, with the T-Mobile Revvl 6 5G, we're getting 4GB of RAM with the MediaTek Dimensity 700 processor. With the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G, we're getting 6GB of RAM with the Samsung Exynos 1280. So between the two, when it comes to performance, in general, neither phone is slow per se, but keep in mind, the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G is significantly faster than the T-Mobile Revvl 6. So if you're going to be on your phone a little bit more, maybe doing more demanding activities like gaming, the A53 5G will be a better choice. That being said though, for more basic activities like web browsing, social media, streaming content like videos and music and stuff like that, as long as you're not going to be on your phone all day, the T-Mobile Revvl 6 is at least going to be okay. Now I did run Geekbench 5 benchmark tests on both phones, and here are the scores I got. So again, as you can see here, the A53 5G does have quite an advantage. So in general, if you want the faster phone between the two, then definitely keep this in mind. But again, in my experience, while not being quite as fast, the T-Mobile Revvl 6 is really not slow by any means. And again, for more basic activities, you're still going to get a pretty good experience. For the battery, with the T-Mobile Revvl 6, we're getting a 4500 mAh battery that supports 15-watt fast charging, and with the A53 5G, we're getting a 5000 mAh battery that supports 25-watt fast charging. So between between the two, the difference isn't really huge, but the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G does have a bit of an advantage. So if you want the phone between the two that has the best battery life, then definitely keep this in mind. And for the fast charging, it's the same kind of thing. 25-watt fast charging, of course, is going to be quite a bit faster than 15. So in general, if the battery is really a main priority for you, the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G will be a better choice. But that being said, keep in mind, with a 4500 mAh battery, the battery life we're getting with the Revvl 6 really isn't bad. So honestly, if you want a good battery, you really won't go wrong with either phone. Now for the software, the T-Mobile Revvl 6 does currently have Android 12, and the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G has Android 13. In addition to this, knowing Samsung, with the A53 5G, you can also expect to get several major updates in the future. On the other hand, with the T-Mobile Revvl 6, there is a decent possibility this phone will eventually get Android 13, but when it comes to these branded carrier phones, I really wouldn't count on it. So in general, if having the latest version of Android is important to you, then I would definitely go with the A53 5G. But honestly, with the T-Mobile Revvl 6, Android 12 is at least decently newer, so if you're not too concerned about the software, then this is probably going to be fine for you. Another thing to keep in mind here is that with the T-Mobile Revvl 6, unfortunately we're not getting NFC, whereas the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G does have NFC, so if you like to make contactless mobile payments using Tap and Pay, keep in mind, you won't be able to do this with the T-Mobile Revvl 6, but you will with the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G. But in conclusion, which one of these phones is actually better? In general, it's pretty clear that in almost every way, the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G is a much better phone. That being said though, this does come with a significantly higher price, and in general, it's really not going to be worth it for everyone. Sure, if you're constantly consuming content and you want a display with really good image quality, or maybe you're taking lots of photos and videos and you want a camera that has really good photo and video quality, a bunch of features, and can record 4K videos, maybe you like to use Tap and Pay, or maybe you're just going to be on your phone a lot and you want a phone that has better performance. In that kind of situation, the A53 5G is going to be a great choice for you. But on the other hand, if you really just need an entry-level affordable 5G phone for more basic activities like web browsing, social media, and you're really just not going to be using your phone a whole lot, in that kind of situation, well, of course, the A53 5G is technically a better phone. The T-Mobile Revvl 6 is honestly all you're going to need. But this concludes my comparison between the T-Mobile Revvl 6 5G and the Samsung Galaxy A53 5G. Again, if you want to learn more about either phone individually, definitely check out the description, where I will be linking to several other videos about each of them, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But that's it for this video. If you found it useful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to follow Kalibus Tech on Twitter and Instagram. And as always, I will see you in the next video.